Hey guys, Steinixos here. So today, as part of my Power Scaling Fundamentals series, we'll be discussing the concept of attack potency, especially as it relates to destructive capacity. Now, the reason I'm covering this is because a lot of people, particularly those who aren't too familiar with power scaling, tend to not understand this concept, and as a result, whenever a power scaling discussion comes up, it almost always leads to someone making a comment along the lines of, that character can't be that strong because their attacks don't destroy a large enough area. Now obviously it would be pretty tedious to re-explain the principle of attack potency every single time I make a scaling or battle related video, so that's exactly why I decided to create this dedicated video, something that can be easily referenced whenever the topic comes up. With that said, let's get into it. Now just as a quick primer, between these two attacks from Ichigo, which one do you think is stronger? So, if you know nothing about Bleach or power scaling, your intuition would probably tell you it's the one on the left side of the screen because of the massive destruction of the building you're seeing. In comparison, the Ichigo on the right is literally being blocked with a single hand, and there's not even so much as a shockwave. Like obviously bigger means stronger, right? Well, not really. See, while intuitions like that can be helpful, they're not always reliable. There are plenty of cases where our intuitions lead us to the wrong conclusion, and this is one of them. Because in this specific situation, we know that the Ichigo on the left, who causes all that massive destruction, is basically base form or Shikai form Ichigo, closer to the beginning of the series. Meanwhile, the Ichigo on the right, the one whose attack is being blocked effortlessly, is Ichigo over 300 chapters of growth later, having had to fight and overcome progressively stronger opponents, and who is currently in his Bankai form, which makes him anywhere from 5 to 10 times stronger than his base form. So there's really no question here. The Ichigo on the right, whose attack looks less impressive, is actually a far more powerful attack than the one on the left, despite the smaller area of effect. And thus we are now confronted with this key discrepancy between what our intuition tells us versus what is actually true. Like, how can an attack with a smaller area of effect be stronger than one with a larger area of effect? So, this is where the distinction between attack potency and destructive capacity comes into play. Now, destructive capacity typically describes the scale of an attack, like how big of an area can this attack damage. So for example, here we have the Buggy Bomb, which is a cannonball explosive that can destroy multiple buildings with ease. And Buggy specifically tells us that it can destroy an entire small village, which for now we'll use as synonymous as a small town, in one shot. So assuming a standard small town size, we would say a Buggy Bomb has a small town level destructive capacity because it can literally destroy a small town in one shot. And note carefully, the in one shot part is very important because obviously less powerful explosives could also destroy a small town if you use multiple of them, but that would be the combined destructive capacity of all the explosive used, not the destructive capacity of any single explosive. Now attack potency on the other hand speaks to the effectiveness of an attack. How it relates to destructive capacity is that the attack potency of an attack would be the destructive capacity that the attack is equivalent to. So for example, here we have Luffy casually kicking Buggy and clearly hurting him. Now we know that Buggy is durable enough to take a Buggy Bomb head on without any damage whatsoever. So even though this kick from Luffy wouldn't have a literal small town area of effect of a Buggy Bomb, we know that it is still at least as strong as the Buggy Bomb, being that it is able to hurt Buggy, who can tank a Buggy Bomb with no damage. So we would say that Luffy's kick has an at least small town level attack potency. So an attack doesn't literally need to destroy a specific large area for us to say that it has a specific attack potency. And an attack with a much smaller area of effect can be much stronger than an attack with a much larger area of effect. And just to hammer this point in even further, because even after what I thought to be a very clear explanation, I still get comments like these saying that King Kong Gun, for example, can't have a country level attack potency because the aftermath of the attack did not physically destroy the entire island of Dressrosa. So to address this, let us take a look at Kaido for example. So we know that all of Kaido's attacks are stronger than a Dressrosa Luffy's King Kong Gun. And yet even so, here you can clearly see that the aftermath of Ragnarok from a hybrid form Kaido has a much smaller area of effect than a Dressrosa Luffy's King Kong gun. As a matter of fact, the area of effect of Ragnarok is even smaller than the area of effect of Dressrosa Dawn's size Drill Dragon Nail. But again, we obviously know that it is not weaker than these attacks. And it is also obviously silly to say that just because Kaido's Ragnarok only had the small area of effect of cratering a few meters of ground, that it therefore cannot be above building level or city block level in strength. So now taking it back to the initial Ichigo comparison, this understanding of attack potency, that is the actual force or energy behind an attack, regardless of how much destruction it causes in the environment, is why we can confidently say that Ichigo's attack on the right, despite being blocked and causing almost no visible damage, is stronger than the one on the left, even though the left side shows a larger area of effect. Furthermore, even though most authors aren't power scalers in the same overly technical or sometimes cringe way you often see online, they do clearly understand the principle of attack potency. In fact, because they recognize its importance and the reality that a lot of readers don't fully grasp this concept, they usually take the time to either explain it directly or at least hint at it in the story. Take Ichigo's third fight against Grimmjow for example. In that fight, Grimmjow fires 5 of his talon projectiles at Ichigo. Now, at first glance, the attack feels pretty unimpressive. Ichigo just tanks the hits. There's no massive explosion, no shockwave, no large-scale destruction. Heck, it doesn't even cause Ichigo to flinch. But here's the thing. Kubo, the author of Bleach, clearly understands that most people aren't meticulously scaling Ichigo and Grimmjow, trying to analyze the true power behind every hit. Most readers are just going off what they see. And because this attack doesn't visually affect a large area, it might seem weak to the average viewer. That's exactly why, in the very next panel, Kubo has Grimmjow demonstrate what just one of those talons does to a nearby pillar. It completely obliterates it. Then, Grimmjow follows up by pointing out that Ichigo took 5 of those talons head on without even budging. So Kubo is clearly going out of his way to give you both the visual evidence and the dialogue to drive the point home. Just because an attack has a small area of effect doesn't mean it's weak. In this case, it's not that the attack lacked power, it's that Ichigo was so strong, he absorbed all of the impact, preventing any widespread destruction. And again, this same principle is similarly explained by Oda in One Piece, where through Bon Clay, he explains truly high-level attacks focus and control the power of the attack into a small concentrated area of pure lethality which does not cause any unnecessary destruction. So a very powerful kick from Bon Clay, for example, could result in a perfectly symmetric hole without any cracks or other such unnecessary destruction of the greater structure of the building. Now you also need to understand that, beyond just the power scaling side of things, there are important reasons why understanding attack potency really matters. First, and most obviously, it helps explain how high-level fiction, like Dragon Ball for example, can even function and continue escalating without everything constantly being annihilated. That is to say, if every single time someone with an attack potency of planetary or above punched someone into the ground, it literally needed to destroy the planet or even a continent, then most of high-level fiction just could not happen. And second, and probably more thematically important, is that many authors actually use an understanding of attack potency as a narrative marker for growth and mastery. Take the fight between Isshin and Grand Fisher for instance. Grand Fisher makes the same assumption most of us would, that since his sword is bigger than Isshin's, it must be stronger. This assumption even seems justified, because in the early chapters of Bleach, it's stated that the size of a Zanpakuto reflects the user's spiritual energy. But what Grand Fisher doesn't realize is the true nature of Isshin's sword. As a captain-level combatant, Isshin's spiritual pressure is immense. His actual blade would be the size of a building. But instead of swinging around some oversized weapon, captains compress that power into a much smaller, more manageable form without losing any of the strength behind it. This idea is also present in One Piece, not just with the Bon Clay example we've already mentioned, but even as early as Zoro's fight against Mihawk. In that battle, Zoro comes at Mihawk using 3 full-size swords, and Mihawk counters with what's basically a toy-sized dagger. Mihawk even says he would have used a smaller blade if he had one available. The whole scene is designed to show just how refined and overwhelming Mihawk's strength is. And this same principle is echoed later in Alabasta during Zoro's fight with Mr. One. At the start of the fight, Zoro is completely unable to damage him, but after learning the concept of cutting nothing, a technique where Zoro learns to control what he cuts, Zoro is able to land a clean, decisive blow and one-shot Mr. One. That moment shows his growth, not just in power, but in finesse and understanding of how to concentrate that power effectively. So again, just because an attack doesn't cause a massive explosion or have a wide area of effect, it does not mean the attack is weak. In fact, as you should now be able to appreciate, it is often intentionally designed that way to reflect the exact opposite. Now of course, I'm also well aware that a lot of people misuse the concept of attack potency, usually in an attempt to upscale their favorite characters using lines of logic that can sometimes be easily seen to be overtly absurd, but on occasion requires a discerning eye to realize why they are fallacious. And if you are interested, I actually go into detail about this in a couple of my other videos. For example, in my The Creation Problem video, I explain why I think it's flawed to try to convert creation feats into attack potency. And in my The Power Scaling Problem video, I break down a whole range of issues from intentional misinterpretations to databook illiteracy and mistranslations to the basic fact that not every clash or interaction in a story is meant to be scaled. So if you're interested in a deeper dive on those topics, definitely check out those videos. And if you want to see the formalized tiers of attack potency with their corresponding energy equivalents, you can check out the table on the Versus Battle Wiki website. But anyway, for now, I hope this video has helped you understand the principle of attack potency and why it's such an important concept when it comes to discussing characters and their power, not only in the power scaling realm, but even when just casually enjoying the true depth of a story. But anyway, that's the video guys. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. But anyway, see you guys next time.